Much for joining us this evening at the last of 10 Hopes and Dreams listening tours that I've been conducting as the superintendent of El Paso ISD. So again, I want to welcome you this evening. My name is Diana Saavedra, and as I said, I'm the proud superintendent of El Paso ISD. And a big part of what I've been doing over the last 90 days, if you will, I started my role as the superintendent on January the 4th. It's been an exciting ride so far. I want to thank the people in the community of El Paso who have welcomed me with warm hearts and open arms. But over the last several months, what I've been doing is really engaging in listening and learning. I've met with a number of different stakeholder groups informally. I've been visiting campuses, and my primary goal during this time has really been to try to formulate an understanding of where we are as an organization, where we are as a school district. And so today, like I said, is the 10th of 10 feeder pattern conversations that I'm engaging with the community so that we can begin to discuss what is possible for the future of our school district. Mr. Reveles, can I have my clicker, please? Because I don't think I have. Thank you. So again, welcome everyone. When I think about the institution of education, and I think about how important it is the most important investment that we can make in our community, is to educate our children and to educate them well. And so it's important for us to come together as a community because we all play a role in how we want our children to be educated and what our expectations are as a community. We all know that our neighborhoods live and die by the quality of the schools. And so, again, thank you so much for your participation tonight. It's going to be important for us to have this conversation and to launch this conversation so that we can begin to talk about the future. So, as you know, as I've been engaging with communities, you might be asking the question, why is she framing this as hopes and dreams? And so I want to start off by kind of setting the context and setting the stage for the frame in which I want you to be thinking as we begin to generate possibilities for the future. And these two terms are important for us to be thinking about. Number one is hope. What is this concept of hope? Well, it really is a firm belief and a feeling that something's possible. So as we engage in our conversation this evening, I want you to be thinking about this word hope, because I know that each and every one of you have strong feelings and beliefs about what's possible for the education of your children. This word dream, what does that mean? And why should we be thinking about this in the context of a dream? Because when we define the word dream, that really means something that you've wanted for a very long time. Something that you've wanted for a very long time. And so as we think about this conversation and how important it is, I want to frame that with those two terms in mind. What firm beliefs do we have about what is possible? And what have we been wanting for a very long time as we think about the education of our children? All right, so why is it important for us to have the community be involved in this conversation? Well, I started this evening by sharing that each one of us plays a part and has a responsibility when we think about the education of our children. And so, as the superintendent of this school district, am I responsible for executing any plan that we come up with, in terms of the future of this school district? Absolutely. And I would welcome your accountability. But if I determine and decide that I'm going to create a plan for this school district in isolation, shame on me. Shame on me. Because these are our schools, our children, our money. Your schools, your children, your money. And so it's important for you to be engaged in this conversation with me as we begin to formulate a plan and chart the future for this school district. So this hopes and dreams framework is really the beginning of a community-based visioning process, because we all have ideas of what we want this school district to become. And we all have ideas about what's possible. And so today is the first of many conversations where we'll come together as a community to begin this community-based visioning process. So what would be the result of conversations like this as we begin to engage in these conversations? Well, as we begin this conversation this evening, what we'll begin to formulate are priorities that rise to the top in terms of what the community deems important when they think about the education of their children. So community priorities will surface. And those priorities will surface in two ways. Priorities that span the entire district, that are common across the school district, and then priorities that may be specific and unique to any given feeder pattern, which is one of the reasons why we've been thoughtful, strategic, and intentional about the way that we've developed the logistics for these conversations. All right, this is our 10th. So we've done every single feeder pattern. And in every single feeder pattern, there are a cross-section of stakeholders that are part of that conversation. So if you notice, some of you are sitting at tables here with me. There are many of you who have joined us and are sitting in the gallery. And there's many of you who have opted to participate from home via live stream. All three groups will have an opportunity to engage in this conversation. Why was it important for me to have a set of stakeholders seated at the tables versus just opening it up to anybody who wanted to come? Well, I didn't want to leave attendance to chance, because I needed to guarantee that I had a minimum number of stakeholders in the room to begin to engage in this conversation. Those are you all that are sitting, the pre-identified stakeholders who are sitting at the tables, right? So I asked my principals for two things. I said, number one, identify those stakeholders and make sure that they come. Make sure that they attend. And number two, I'd like you to attend as well, sit in the gallery, listen, and learn along with me. Those are the two things that I asked them. So there's a strategic, intentional, and thoughtful reason why I have people seated at the table, because I needed to guarantee attendance. But I also knew that it was important for anyone who wanted to participate to have the opportunity to do so. So we created a framework that allows those of you who are sitting in the gallery to participate as well, and those of you who are watching from home. If you have technology, you will be able to participate in the conversation this evening in the gallery, and those of you who are watching from home. So as we begin to formulate priorities through this conversation, that's going to lead to information that I can then discuss with the board so that we can begin to create what I call directional documents. And that is, what is our mission as a school district? Why do we exist? What is our vision as a school district? What do we hope to become? What do we see for the future? And then core beliefs and commitments. What do we value as an organization, as an educational system? And what are the goals that we're going to set forth so that we can begin to make progress and determine what that progress looks like in the form of a strategic plan? And then you see the term learner profiles, because it's not enough for us to just prepare our students academically. There's a lot more that goes into the education of our children. Academic preparedness is absolutely critical and important, but there are other skills and other attributes that our children need when they graduate from our institution of learning so that we can guarantee their success beyond El Paso ISD. And so that's what I call defining what our learner profile is. What kind of communication skills do we want our children to graduate with? Should they be able to collaborate with others? Is community service important to us? Should they learn the importance of giving back to the community? Those are the additional attributes that come in the form of a learner profile that add value to their academic preparedness. So these are the things that will come from this community-based visioning conversation that we're having this evening. All right, so what does this really look like? So as we engage in the conversation, as I said, there's a cross-section of stakeholders that I've invited to join me this evening. And again, thoughtful, intentional, and strategic, because each one of us, as I said, play a part in the education of our children. So when we think about the hopes and dreams and what's possible for the future, students, you have a seat at this table. You are part of this conversation. Your voice is the most important voice in this conversation. You're the end user, and we exist to serve you. So students, when you're thinking about this conversation, I want you to be thinking about what are your hopes and dreams for your future. Parents, what are the hopes and dreams that you have for your children? Educators, you became an educator for a reason. What are your hopes and dreams for your students? And community members, you have a seat at this table as well. What are the hopes and dreams that you have for the neighborhoods and the community that you serve? And as an institution of education, how can I better understand your role in the community so that I can leverage the assets that you bring to contribute to the education of our children? And then the entire audience, as a member of the El Paso Independent School District, again, what do we want in terms of the hopes and dreams for the future of our children and their education? So that's why it's important to have a cross-section of stakeholders, guaranteed attendance, and then open up the floor for those of you who are in the gallery and those of you who are participating via live stream. So how are we going to go about doing this evening? We're going to use a platform that's called Thought Exchange. So let me give you just a little bit of information about how that platform works. The way it works is that I will ask an open-ended question. We're going to go through 2 rounds of thought exchanges. And in each one of those rounds, I'm going to ask you an open-ended question. And when I ask that open-ended question, you're going to have an opportunity to type in your thoughts, to respond to the question. As people are typing in their thoughts, you're going to be able to see all of those thoughts come through. So you'll be able to type in thoughts, share your thoughts, and you'll also be able to read the thoughts of others and rate those thoughts on a scale from 1 to 5. 1 being, I'm not sure about that thought. I'm not sure if I really agree with that. To a 5, where that is absolutely on target, that is exactly what I think, I'm going to rate that a 5, right? So any rating between 1 and 5. All right, so you're going to input thoughts, you're going to be able to read the thoughts of others, and then you're going to rate those thoughts. Very easy to use web format. We'll provide you assistance. We've got several people in the audience. All you'll have to do is raise your hand, and we'll come and help you. And the platform, when you go into the platform, you'll be able to look at the drop-down menu and choose the language that you prefer to communicate in, whether that's English or Spanish. So if you want to type your thoughts in Spanish, you're absolutely welcome to do so. If you're more comfortable in English, then do that too. And whatever you input into the system is anonymous. So the responses that we create as part of this conversation, absolutely anonymous. I will not be able to go and track down, who put in what thought. Be honest, be candid. I'm listening and I'm learning. All right? So That's a little bit about the platform. So as I said, I've been engaging in conversations for the last 60 to 90 days. Since January the 4th, I've been visiting schools. When I visit schools, I don't only walk the hallways. I walk into classrooms, I introduce myself to the teacher, I engage in conversations with students. I ask them, I'm here to visit your school, what should I know? What are the points of pride for your school? What can you tell me? When I leave your school, what should I know about it, right? And so I engage in conversations with them. I've engaged in conversations with a number of community members. I've engaged in conversations with internal stakeholders, teacher advisory committees, principals that I meet with on a regular basis, teachers. We had a budget review committee the other day where I engaged with them. And so as I've had these informal conversations with people, I already know some things about this school district. All right, I've discovered some things about this school district as I'm trying to formulate what our current reality is. And here are some of the things that I already know. I already know that as a superintendent working together with the board, that I am going to have to work very hard to restore the faith of this community in our school district, because we've lost credibility with the community. And so it'll be incumbent upon me and the work that we do together to begin to restore that faith. I know that. Number two, I also know in some of my document reviews and my conversations with cabinet level leadership that we have declining enrollment. And we've been experiencing declining enrollment as a school district for about a decade, right? And so another challenge that we will have to overcome as an organization is to reverse that declining enrollment. Stabilize it and reverse it, and invite our families back to the table, back to the educational system here in El Paso ISD. Modernizing our aging facilities. We are the oldest school district in the county of El Paso. We've been in existence for over 140 years. And the average age of our facilities is 50 years old. We are educating children and preparing them for a future that will produce jobs that we don't even know yet. We don't know what those jobs will be. We don't necessarily know the skill level that they need to be prepared, to meet, to compete with out there. We have an idea. We don't know all of it, but we have an idea. But what I can tell you is that if we are educating our children in facilities that are not 21st century learning spaces, we've got to address that. We've got to address modernizing our facilities and making sure that the learning spaces our children are being educated in are truly helping them understand what the future will look like. And then finally, what I've heard from parents and teachers and a lot of students is that we have an overemphasis on high-stakes testing in this school district. We assess our children to death. And so we need to do something about that. We need to create a system that does more than chase that STAR exam. We need to do more for our children. They deserve more. Now, is that accountability important? Yes, but I'm going to ask you this question. In an A through F accountability system, to who and for what are you accountable? To who is the state? You're accountable to the state with the A through F accountability system. And for what? For making sure that your students can pass a STAR exam. That's a minimum expectation. Minimum. Again, our children deserve more. Now, when I ask that question, to whom and for what are you accountable, when we come together as a community and we vision and we determine this is what we want for our children, this is the evidence that we will accept that we're making progress, then to whom are we accountable? To that contract that we made with you. That we said, this is what we said we wanted, This is the plan that we have in place. This is the evidence that shows we're making progress. I'm accountable to you. For what? For what we determined would be the evidence that we would accept. That's a different conversation than an A through F accountability conversation. Are those data points important? Absolutely they are. But they're a minimum expectation. So de-emphasizing that high-stakes assessment is something that we need to be thinking about. So the other thing that we did in preparation for these listening sessions by feeder pattern are that we sent out a pre-listening question. Again, for two reasons: thoughtful, intentional, strategic. Number one, I wanted to know from the public, what conversation should we be having and what do I need to know as a superintendent? I wanted to generate pre-information walking into these conversations with you all as stakeholders in the community. So that was the primary reason for us sending that out. And number two, I wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for the community to engage in the Thought Exchange platform, because I sent the question out via the Thought Exchange platform. And as of today, we have over 1,800 responses to the pre-listening question. Over 1,800 responses. So that's good news. That's great news. That means that people they want to share with me the conversations that we should be having and what I need to know. So from that, what are some of the things that have bubbled to the top from that pre-listening question? First of all, employee compensation is weighing heavy on everyone's mind. We've been responding to the pandemic for the last 2 years. So being in education is hard enough. You know, we're in the human business. We're not, a factory assembly line. It takes a lot to educate our children. And the pandemic has made it that much more difficult. So we are working very diligently as an organization to address employee compensation in a way that honors our employees and lets them know that we value their contributions. Class size is something that has come up quite a bit. And class size is something for us to pay attention to, because when we think about issues of communication, when we think about issues of feedback that our children need as part of the learning process, class size plays a role in that. If you have a secondary teacher that's teaching 6 out of 7 classes and their class load is over 180 students, when I say caseload is more than 180 students, that makes it very difficult for them to respond back to your emails. That makes it very difficult for them to pick up the phone and have a conversation about how they need your support in the classroom. That makes it very difficult for them to hold tutoring sessions for students who need additional help, or to differentiate when students need, additional help in the classroom. So if we're developing master schedules at the secondary level that load up teachers with more than 180 kids total, that's something that we need to pay attention to. Same thing at the elementary level. Our class sizes need to be manageable so that our teachers can manage behavior and can provide the individual feedback that students need that's critical to the learning process, right? So then this issue of curriculum and assessment. What instructional framework do we want? And again, this de-emphasis on assessment. We know that we have to have systems that help us gather evidence of student learning. But what does that look like? How can it be more authentic? And how can it be more meaningful for children so that they become owners of their learning? They develop a greater sense of ownership and investment in the learning process. Safety and discipline. That's a big issue. Behavior. We can't begin to deliver instruction unless we have a safe environment for children to learn. We've got to build that culture of learning campus-wide and in every classroom, at every school. So safety and discipline and the social emotional supports that our children need are critical and have surfaced in this pre-listening session question. College readiness, nobody would dispute that. After our kids leave us, how prepared are they to go out and conquer the world regardless of what path they choose to take? Whether it's a path where they've secured industry certification and they can go right into the workforce, or whether it's a more traditional academic path, when they leave El Paso ISD, we want them to be able to compete with the best of them out there, regardless of where they choose to go. When they knock on that door of opportunity, I want them to be able to turn that doorknob and for that door to swing wide open, and for them to be able to walk through that door and become the best version of themselves, to chase their dreams, follow their dreams, and to be successful. And then food and nutrition. That has been a huge conversation that we've had. If children are hungry, they're not in any position to learn. And so we need to pay attention. Not only do we need to provide very nutritional meals, well-balanced meals, because wellness is important, but we need to make sure that we've got enough lines so that kids have enough time to eat, that they're not scarfing down their food in 10 minutes because they've waited in line for 20, right? And so food and nutrition is something that has surfaced in terms of a theme in these pre-listening session conversations. So we're going to start engaging in our first round of thoughts, all right? And so says, as you imagine the El Paso ISD of the future, what do you envision is possible for our students? Before I launch you, I'm going to share something with you. We can spend our time this evening with you sharing everything that you don't like about this school district, but that gives me this much information. I would encourage you, again, to go back to those terms, hopes and dreams, and let's have a conversation about what's possible for the future of this school district and for our children. That information is much more beneficial for me and for us as a community as we begin to vision for our children and the education that we want for them. So, those of you who are at the table, there are placemats. Get your phones out, get your laptop out, or get your tablet out. Go to tjoin.com and type in the QR code, or you can use your camera to take a picture of the QR code of the placemat that's on your table. Those of you who are in the gallery, get your phones out. Get your phones out. We want you to participate. Go to tjoin.com and type in the QR code, and let's hear your thoughts as well. And those of you who are listening live stream from home, whatever you have at your disposal, your phone, a tablet, or your laptop, join the conversation with us by going to the website and typing in the QR code. And so, again, raise your hand if you need help. You're going to type in thoughts. You're going to read others' thoughts, and you're going to rate them. You have about 15 minutes to start working through that. And this is an individual exercise. Individual exercise. Difficulty, raise your hand and we'll help you get into the system. So far, we've only generated 15 thoughts. There's a lot of you in here. We need to generate thoughts, read those thoughts, and rate those thoughts. Those of you in the gallery, join with your phones, and those of you who are listening via live stream, join the conversation. And you have Chick-fil-A at your table, so certainly eat while you work. Water. So as you're typing in thoughts, read the thoughts of others and rate those thoughts. I'll give you an opportunity to discuss in a little bit, but right now I need you working real hard to generate thoughts, read thoughts, and rate thoughts. Right now we're only at a ratio of an 8, and we need to get to 20 or higher. So that means we need to read the thoughts and rate them. Keep reading the thoughts and rating them. We're still not at our ratio yet, so that means that we need to go in and read the thoughts of others and rate them. I'll give you plenty of time to discuss in just a few minutes, but right now I need you reading, either typing thoughts, reading thoughts, or rating thoughts. I know I'm asking you to think real hard, but keep working for just a little longer. Just a little longer, guys. We're still not to our ratio yet. That means we need to read thoughts and rate them. Not quite discussion yet. I'm going to ask you to think just for a little longer. Can you change the music? One and a half minutes left. You have about a minute. Okay, you have about 30 seconds. Ten seconds. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. If I could have everybody's attention back here. First of all, let me thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause because I know I made you think really, really hard for just a second, right? I know that you're doing a lot of good work. So thank you so much. So if you all look up at the screens, you'll see that we have about 121 participants that are inputting thoughts. We generated about 187 thoughts, over 4,000 ratings at a ratio of 23. So that's good information. What are some of the things that were bubbling to the top as we think about, and as I was scrolling and looking at some of the thoughts that were generated? Well, one of the ones that you see on the screen is, access to counselors and conversations with counselors. And again, caseload for counselors is also something that seems to be something that we should pay attention to. I saw a lot of comments that talked about making learning fun again. I saw comments that referred to project-based learning. There's one right here, empower students. They got a rating of 4.4. Anything that is rated as a 4 or a higher is a thought that we should pay attention to, a theme that we should really explore a little bit more. So I'm going to give you an opportunity now to have a discussion at your table. Given the fact that you all have input several thoughts and you've read a number of different thoughts that were generated, have a discussion at your table about, again, this concept of what we think is possible for the future of our school district and our students. I'm going to give you some time to talk at your tables. Those of you who are in the gallery, turn to your neighbor and have a conversation. Those of you who are watching live stream, have a conversation at the dinner table. Is there a way? 1 more minute to discuss at your tables. About 30 seconds. Ten seconds. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, guys, thank you so much for your discussion at the table. If I could have everybody's attention back here. All right, if I could have everybody's wrap up your conversation. All right, thank you for your attention back here. So before I ask our students to stand, I did want to introduce, we do have our board member who represents the El Paso feeder pattern, Miss Leah Hanani, who is here. Let's give her a round of applause and thank her for being here. I'll share with you that although board members are elected officials, all of the work that they do is volunteer. And so they spend a lot of hours reading material, engaged in meetings with you as a community, with me as a superintendent, so that they can make the best decisions on behalf of your children and our community. So thank you, Ms. Hanani, for being here, and thank you for your service to our district. All right, students in the house, I need you to stand up. All right, let's give our students a big round of applause. Let's give our students a big round of applause. All right, students, I shared with you that we exist as an organization to serve you. You are the end customer. You are the end user of this thing that we call education. And so your voice is one of the most important voices that we'll hear tonight. So, who's going to be my first courageous student that's going to share some of the discussion that you were having at your table about what's possible for the future of our school district? Who wants to be first? All right. All right, let's listen because our students have a lot to say.
So hi everyone. So my table talked about...
let us know who you are and what school you're from.
So my name is Adeline Ontiveros and I'm from the Young Women's Academy. And what we talked about was getting our students a lot of community-based information, whether it's college resources or having like anti-bullying presentations, just so that way we prepare our students for the real world.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, thank you so much for that. She said 2 things that are very, very important. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If I summarize the 2 things that she pointed out, number 1, it's important for us to help students understand community, right? Because we can't hope to educate our children just in the 7.5 hours that we have in the school building. We've got to understand what the community is and how we can leverage our community resources to the benefit of our students. So helping them understand what's out there and how to tap into that is important. Secondly, we want schools where students are caring and compassionate with each other, where we have bully-free zones and students know how to communicate with each other. We don't always have to agree with each other, but we have to have a culture of caring and compassion, and we have to support each other in that. So thank you so much for those comments, very important. All right, I want to hear from 3 more of my students. Who else is right here? We have a young man, all right. Your name and the school you represent. Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is, sit on.
Yes, there it is.
Hi, my name is Sebastian Majerzik, and I'm a freshman at El Paso High. My table talked about how we can get students to open up about their problems to teachers and that they feel comfortable. Because I know personally, I'd rather talk to one of my teachers than a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what we talked about.
Wonderful. Well, great. Thank you for sharing that. Let's give him a round of applause. So when I listened to comments like that, that really points to creating a safe learning environment, creating a safe space for children to learn, and creating that culture of learning, and providing opportunities for students to develop good, strong working relationships with their teachers. That's important to kids these days because a lot of times they need to develop the courage to communicate openly with their parents, and sometimes it starts with that first communication with teachers. So thank you so much for sharing that information with me. All right, two more. I want to hear from some of my elementary children and my middle school, right over here.
Hello, my name is Anais Hernandez. I am from Mesita Elementary, and what my table talked about is anti-bullying. One of the things we talked about is anti-bullying. So since I've been seeing a lot of bullying in other schools and especially my school, I would like for some of the counselors to give speeches about how we could stop bullying, and maybe have like some people represent their grades by walking around during lunch, recess, and PE, and to see if we could find people that are bullying and kind of send them if they keep on doing it straight to the counselor, so they could explain why they've been bullying and who they've been bullying.
All right, well, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that information with me. And what's important about what Ms. Hernandez shared is two things. Number one, again, we're looking towards a future where we have bully-free schools, where students feel safe and they're caring for each other. But I think that there was something even more important that she shared when she shared her comments, and that is that ownership that I referred to, that students can help us realize that future just as well as adults can. So yes, does the counselor play an important role? Yes. Does the teacher play an important role? Yes. Does the parent play an important role? Yes. And students can play an important role too, because they can hold each other accountable for the behavior that they'll accept in their schools and the behavior that they will confront in terms of referring their peer to go find some help on how they might cope with bullying or how might they better manage, bullying. So thank you so much, because that was a very insightful comment. I appreciate that. Let's give her another round of applause. One more. Can I hear from one of my middle school students? Right over here, this young lady. All right, what can you share with us?
Hi, my name is Molly Rourke. I'm from Wiggs Middle School, and one of the things our table talked about was how students should have more one-on-one time with teachers, because I feel like a lot of students fail to comprehend the subject because they don't have enough time to speak with the teachers because of how big the class sizes are.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for reinforcing that. Let's give her a round of applause. Like I said, sometimes our students need more one-on-one time, more face time with their teachers, and so we have to be very mindful of class size and caseload so that we can make sure that our teachers have enough time to develop those relationships and to really work with students. When I ask students, what do you value in your teacher? The things that they tell me is that they want a teacher who, number one, cares about them, who recognizes who their strengths are when they might not recognize them themselves, and that really challenges them and pushes them, to be the best version of themselves. But that takes time, and sometimes that takes one-on-one conversations. So thank you so much, Ms. O'Rourke. We appreciate that. Students, have a seat. Let's give you, again, one more round of applause. All right, teachers. I'd like teachers. Those of you who are in the house, please stand up and be recognized. I know there's several of you here. All right, teachers, as we've gone through this first round of thought exchange and we think about what's possible for the future of El Paso ISD and for the education of our students, what can you share with me in terms of the conversations you were having at your tables? Who wants to be my first courageous teacher? Right over here. Please share your name and where you're from.
Okay, hi, my name is Rebecca Guerrero. I teach at the Young Women's Academy. And one thought that we had at our table was that learning should be engaging and innovative. So we talked a lot about project-based learning and service-based learning, and really lessons that connect students to their home lives and to their lived experience, something that kind of helps them to bring the funds of knowledge from home into the classroom and just makes them excited and engaged with their learning. They should not be bored to tears. They should feel motivated and excited to be in the classroom learning with us every day.
Absolutely. Let's give her a round of applause. Very, very powerful statements. You know, when we think about the learning experience, yes, we want it to be real world. We want our students to engage. We want them to apply the learning that they've had into, you know, the community, lived experiences. All of those things are critical and important. And guess what? When we have classrooms that are engaging in that way, behavior sometimes becomes a non-issue because students are so excited about learning, they're so engaged with learning that they don't have time to misbehave, right? So absolutely very powerful thoughts. Thank you. What other thoughts did we have right here?
Okay, it's Gabriela Carpenter, and I'm in El Paso High School. And when we were talking about social emotional learning, we were also talking about mental health, and we were talking about how students confide with their problems. But sometimes we as teachers, we lend a kind shoulder, but sometimes we don't know what to do, so sometimes we outsource them to the counselors, but they don't feel comfortable because they don't see them day to day. And sometimes we need a little bit of more training and also more personnel that is familiar with that kind of problems that teenagers are facing at home and in school, and that they could go ahead and give them a little bit more help and not just resource them to somewhere else and go to this agency and go to this another agency because students don't go or the parents don't go, and they need a little bit more help in the school.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for those thoughts. And, you know, something that has come up is that, you know, we've all experienced a level of trauma as we have been responding to the pandemic over the last 2 years. And some of the problems that we're bringing to the forefront, or some of the challenges, I should say, and opportunities, have existed, but they've been exacerbated, you know, as a result of the pandemic. So now more than ever, we know that our children need a lot of emotional support. And I think that our teachers have experienced trauma too, so you all need support in the form of training and ways that you can continue to engage your students and address their social and emotional needs. So thank you so much for those comments. 2 more teachers and then we're gonna move on. Yes, right through here.
Hi, I'm Jessica Silva, and I'm the librarian here at El Paso High, and I have 2 fellow librarians here in our feeder pattern, so that's awesome. But I just think EPISD should support and staff and fund libraries because we see every single student on our campus, and it's and it's very, very important, especially right now that we're creating information literate and future-ready students, and I think librarians are frontline for helping to do that, and yeah. Support libraries.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that information because important. We talked a lot about college career readiness. We've talked about a lot of project-based learning, you know, and really when we think about some of the foundational skills our children need to be successful as they matriculate through our organization, it's literacy. And literacy doesn't start in 3rd grade when we start measuring how well students do on a STAR test. Literacy begins well before students even enter our school system. And so some of our children come from literacy-rich environments, some of them don't. But regardless, literacy is critical. And our librarians, along with our teachers, play a huge role in that. And obviously I have a soft heart for librarians because my mother was a librarian the last 5 years of her educational career. So absolutely, literacy is important. And libraries are hubs for us to get students connected with literacy and how important that is. So thank you so much. One more teacher, and then we're gonna go to our 2nd round of thought exchange right here.
I'll be mellow.
Brief.
Dr.
Yes.
G knows. Is it on? Yes. Hello? Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Pete Biddle. I'm the librarian at YWA, so another librarian. I'm totally into the empowering students so they have some opportunities. Why? Because our students, whether even they're in elementary, middle school, or high school, they need those opportunities to where they can have, oh gosh, okay, I'm going to say 1,000 things, so I'm going to slow down. I want them to have those opportunities, and PBL is a great way. We talked about that. Project-based learning helps out, where students can come out of their shell because they're going to have to stand in front of an audience like this wonderful young lady did, and talk. We want to also have those opportunities for those kids in the high school because we have these two wonderful gentlemen from AutoZone, coming down to our schools so our students have opportunities to work with them. We also want to empower them with equipment and things that they will have in the real world, not this hand-me-down stuff what we talked about, but things that'll help them in the real world. So if they're in the high school or the middle school and they leave and they go somewhere, they're going to have that same experience, like we see with the internships with our Silva Health Magnet. So I totally believe in the empowerment and opportunities for our students.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And give him a round of applause, because that level of enthusiasm is contagious. So awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, teachers, have a seat. All right. Okay, guys, we're going to get back to work now. We've got our second round of thoughts that we need to be thinking about and that we need to generate. So as we think about this next round of thought exchange, so our first round, we talked about what's possible for our students and what's possible for the future of our school district. This second round, we need to be thinking about what are some actions that we need to take, some things that we need to address. What do we need to do to make that possibility, that future, a reality? All right? So you have a different QR code for this one. You notice that there's 2 on your placemat. So go into that second QR code, tjoin.com. QR code is on the screen. Those of you who are in the gallery, again, we want you to participate and engage. Those of you who are at home live stream, get your phones out and type in the new QR code. Again, what actions do we need to take? What things do we need to address to make that future that we were talking about a reality? Can you set the timer? Here's the teacher in me redirecting your behavior. Let's focus on generating thoughts, reading thoughts, and rating thoughts. We'll have time to discuss in just a minute. Hang with me, stay for, you need to work just a little longer. We've got to read some of these thoughts and rate them. We're still not at our ratio, and we have about 6 more minutes. Got about 5 more minutes. Okay, you have about 3 more minutes. You have about 2 more minutes. Okay, about 1 more minute. Thirty seconds. Ten seconds. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you all so much for second round of thoughts and thinking real hard. So a couple of things that I noticed when I was scrolling through and looking at what you all were putting in there, you know, something that was evident is that, you know, if we want to create real world experiences for our students, we might need to think about maybe going on more field trips, taking students to the places where, again, we're not educating students just in the school building and trying to recreate the real world here, that sometimes we may need to venture out and show them places and take them places. I think that there was also information on there about funding and resources, right? Because it takes money to kind of create the future. So a lot of great equity versus equality, because those two terms mean very different things. Equity is a concept of really thinking about what the needs are and addressing the system based on those needs. Equal means one size fits all, right? And so I saw a lot of comments about the fact that we can't be in the business of one size fits all, which is one of the reasons why we're doing these conversations by feeder pattern, right? Because again, there's going to be some things that are going to be common across the district, but there are going to be some things that are unique to each feeder pattern. All right, and one of the things that I saw was a culture that really emphasizes the whole child and educating the whole child and thinking about all the things, you know, that come with that. Again, not just academic preparedness, but what are the other things that we need to think about. All right, I'm going to give you a few minutes to discuss at your tables, and then I'm going to ask some other stakeholders to stand up and share out as we kind of wrap up in just a few minutes. But I want you to discuss and share at your tables. What are the actions that we need to take, the things that we need to do in terms of making that future a reality? All right, you have about 1 more minute to discuss. Thirty seconds. Start wrapping up some of your final thoughts, some of your final discussions. Ten seconds. Start wrapping up your conversation. And 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, if I could have your attention back here. Parents, if you'll stand up and be recognized. Parents, stand up and be recognized. Let's go, parents. Come on, don't be shy. Stand up and be recognized. All right, first of all, thank you so much, parents. Thank you so much, parents, for being here and sharing your thoughts with us. You are a very important part of this process because, you know, as an educational institution, there needs to be a strong partnership between the home and the school if we hope to really realize, you know, that future that we described. So I want to hear from 3 parents. What can you share with us in terms of some thoughts and discussions at your table about actions that we need to take and things that we need to do to make that future a reality? 3 parents, be courageous. Right here.
So I'm a huge advocate for making sure everyone is compensated financially for what they put into my students. I mean, they're with my students more than I am, and I want to make sure that we're bringing in the best that we can. And when you look at what like a substitute teacher can make, like it's significant. Why can't we make sure that we're paying our teachers who are there full time adequately so that they stay there and there's not a lot of days missing or they don't feel the connection because they don't necessarily make the money that they should be.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Let's give her a round of applause. And so absolutely attracting and retaining top talent, you know, there's a compensation fits into that equation. And please hear me when I say that as a superintendent and a board of trustees, we are committed to really working to develop a budget that compensates our employees fairly and competitively so that we can honor them for the hard work that they do every day with our children. So thank you so much for that. 2 more parents. 2 more parents. Right here. Or, oh, one right here. All right.
Hi, my name is Michelle Cummings, and I'm also a school nurse. So one of my biggest fears is when I drop my kids off every day that they're not safe. So school nurses don't go on field trips, parents don't go on field trips, so sometimes we worry about the safety of our kids. And I know that teachers are overwhelmed, there's a lot going on, but I think basic first aid, choking protocols, things like that should be implemented as part of the bloodborne pathogens training.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. We appreciate that. You know, and that was part of the information that came out of the pre-listening session question. When we think about safety, it's much more than just discipline and bullying. There's physical safety also that we need to be thinking about. So thank you so much for your contribution. One more comment from a parent, and then I'm going to call on your community members. Yes, sir.
Hi, Joe Moody, parent of a kiddo at ECDC and one at Mesita. So I'll connect it to the conversation we had at the table, but what's been pervasive throughout all of this is mental health, emotional health, kind of well-rounding students. So I kind of view the world through watching how my kids have progressed. And my oldest started kinder, a couple days after the Walmart shooting, and had a shutdown at their school. And later that year, spring break comes up, and they are dismissed and then don't go back for a year because of pandemic. So that's a trauma that's been visited on them, right? And all of our children have experienced that in different ways. So I think what's, when I look at the world through their eyes and they are thriving, their teachers did an amazing job. I don't know how they kept them on a computer and engaged like that. But you saw people doing back-breaking work. And now that they're back on campus, they're doing obviously different and various types of it to bring the kids up to speed. So resources, and what we heard at the table here is different ways to make sure we're connecting students in a way that they feel comfortable talking about their mental and emotional health in ways that kind of, depending on their grade level, they may have different ways that they want to engage in that conversation. So being open to that, but that also means giving teachers the resources they need to do it. We ask a lot of them. We ask a lot of them. And so make sure that they have those resources. I think class size is a big part of that, and the possibilities that we listed earlier in the conversation, a lot of those can be addressed if you have right sizing of classes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your contribution. And yes, thank you, parents. Have a seat. And we've experienced quite a bit of trauma as a community, and then on top of that with the pandemic and responding to that. So absolutely paying very close attention to not only the trauma that our adults have experienced, but especially our children, and looking at what kind of multi-tiered support systems do we need to have in place, and how do we need to fund those resources so that we can deliver that education that we have talked about is possible for the future. All right, community members, please stand up and be recognized. If you're a community member, please stand up and be recognized, because we can't do this without you. You know, and we've got a number of opportunities and ways that we can leverage the resources that we have in our community to really enrich the learning experience for our children. So I'd like to hear from 2 community members about your thoughts and some of the conversations that you were having at your table. Right over here. Mm-hmm.
Perlman, a community member. I put 2 kids through EPISD schools. One went through the Coronado, and one went here to El Paso High. And one of the things I think this feeder program has over all the others in the school district is they had the Connecting Worlds that my daughter got into at Mesita, and the education she got between Mesita and Wiggs had put her on a high track. And you know, by the time she got here, my ex was pushing her to go to the IB program. She said to me, well, I saw CCTE when they came around in 8th grade, and the IB program and all the educations. And I think the CCTE program gets overlooked in the respect that you see a lot of kids, when I take her every day, she was in health and science, so the kids in those classes were there because they wanted to learn. But you saw kids that were going to fall through the cracks if they didn't have a vocational training opportunity. And they weren't just coming from El Paso High and this feeder program. They were coming, I think, from schools outside our district. And so I think electives and things like at Wiggs, which I'm on a CIT at another school, and I talk about Wiggs band and orchestra. You know, getting these kids when they're young, developing their brains, something I never had. I only had athletics pushed on me as a kid.
Right, absolutely.
So I think these are some positives we should take away. I know we're talking about dreams and visioning, but we do have a lot of good things going on within our district as well.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And that is absolutely something that we don't want to lose sight of, that we want to build on the strengths that we have currently in our organization. And there's a lot of opportunities for us to build on what we have in place right now and expand those opportunities for students, you know, across, you know, El Paso ISD. One more community member right over here.
Hi, my name is Catherine Mortimer. I am an educational researcher and faculty at UTEP in teacher education. Also an EPISD parent, and you just mentioned our community assets, and one of the most tremendous community assets that we have is our bilingualism and biculturalism, and EPISD has done a tremendous job in fostering that, especially at the elementary level, and I would really like to see that investment continue through middle and high school, and especially so that all students have the opportunity at all levels, in all programs, in all special like STEM programs, robotics opportunities, that students have an opportunity to learn bilingually and practice their bilingualism and develop it in those opportunities.
Thank you so much for making that a point. Y'all can have a seat now. Thank you so much for that point, and that's a great way for us to begin to wrap up and discuss next steps and where do we go from here. But absolutely, we're a unique community in El Paso, and our bilingualism, our opportunities to become bicultural and biliterate are, you know, extraordinary. And so for us to, we would be remiss if we didn't build on that strength that we have built into our community and really help our kids, because that does give our students a leg up and really helps them compete out there in the real world. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. So let's wrap up, because I know that we're a little over time, and so I apologize for that. But how will this conversation continue, and what will we do with the information that we've generated? Like I said, there was a reason why I had a cross-section of stakeholders here this evening. And of course, we invited you in the gallery to participate, and we invited those of you at home to participate. But we're going to come back to this group of stakeholders, because this information that we're generating across all 10 feeder patterns and for the district as a whole is something that I'll go back and share with the board. We will be working on developing our directional documents. Again, our mission, why do we exist? Our vision, what do we hope to become in the future? Our core beliefs and commitments, what kind of culture do we want to create in our organization? What do we value? And then what are our goals? We're going to bring that information back to you to continue this conversation and continue this momentum, because I'm going to want your feedback. Did we hit the mark? Did we capture what you said was important to you? And as we build our strategic plan and the metrics that we'll use to determine what progress we'll make, we're also going to bring that right back to you so that you can say, well, no, I'm not sure that that's enough evidence for me. I'd like to see it in this way, right? So we're going to continue this conversation, so stay tuned for more engagement and for more involvement in, like I said, this community visioning process that we're engaged in, because we all have a responsibility and a huge investment in our children and the education of our children. So I'm going to end with this closing thought. The only way for us to control the future is to create it. So I thank you so much for your engagement this evening. Thank you so much for your time. I want to give my staff a round of applause for helping me put this on. We had our community engagement group, IT, and fine arts that have done a stellar job for the last 3 weeks, making sure that our technology and all of the logistics have been taken care of. Those of you who are the principals of this feeder pattern, can you stand and be recognized? Like I said, I asked them for 2 things, and they delivered. They absolutely delivered. So thank you so much for your hard work. Thank you. Yeah, I tell you, I asked them for 2 things. Get your stakeholders here and show up to listen and learn, and they absolutely delivered. So thank you so much. And then just a big thanks to the central office staff and my cabinet who have attended every single one of these listening sessions. So thank you all so much. I want to give you all a round of applause. And that's a wrap up. Like I said, it's been a joy to engage with every community across the school district, and stay tuned, because I'm going to continue to engage with you in this fashion. And let me just tell you that the future of El Paso ISD is bright. And so I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your thoughts and your energy this evening. Have a wonderful evening. I appreciate you.